Welcome to another episode of Life and Whiskey. As always, I'm Jordan, and today, once again, we got ourselves Stagg. Now, if you're watching these videos in order, literally, I don't know, what, one video ago, I just got done reviewing the Stagg 2023C, or 23C, that my wife bought me for my birthday. Phenomenal. My wife paid way too much money for it, but it probably is the only way that I was going to get that specific batch. And for that, hopefully your wife or girlfriend or whomever is as awesome as that, and I love her greatly for it. But man, I'm glad she did it and then told me about it, because if she had told me about it first, I would have trouble. $300 is just stupid money for a bottle of whiskey. However, I was not expecting to be able to get my hands on anything anytime soon. It had been over a year since anybody local for a reasonable price had gotten a bottle. There's a couple of stores in town that get some allocated bottles, and yeah, they do the typical. I think a bottle of Stagg's going to run $150 to $300. Depending on what they do, and they'll do some lotteries and other things and whatever else. And luckily, I didn't have to deal with any of that. My local store, apparently you spend $5-6 grand in whiskey at a store, they start to look at you a little bit different. So they called me and said, hey, guess what? We got this in. I was able to get it. Greatly appreciate it. I was able to get it for an absolutely reasonable price of $51.59. For all those who are wondering, I don't know what exactly the MSRP is, but it's somewhere in that ballpark. And that's what a bottle of this should cost. That's what any Sazerac Buffalo Trace product should be, is somewhere around the actual MSRP. Like the Antique Collection, I want to say is like in the upper hundreds to $250, $275 maybe. The Pappies, I think MSRP on like Pappy 23 is maybe 250, something like that. It's pretty reasonable in air quotes. Which, if you've never had any of those, I would highly suggest that you try before you buy, because chances are the average person is not going to like almost any of the Pappy lineup. Having had all of them, they're not that great, in my opinion, because they're very over oaked. I've hit on that many times. But the Antique Collection, that one, just like all the rest of these, depending on the release, can be phenomenal. The 2024 Stagg is supposed to be outstanding, along with the Weller. I'm not going to get my hands on any of those, and I'm sure as hell not going to pay $1,000 for it. That's even more insane. So, yeah, definitely not doing that. But lucky enough to get my hands on this Stagg. And quite literally, after my wife and I both were like, oh, well, that's probably the only bottle I'm ever going to get, literally a week later, they called me up and said, hey, we got one for you. So thank you to the good Lord above and everybody else who made that possible. I got batch 24B ringing in at 63.9% ABV, or 127.8 proof. I don't really know a whole lot about this. I've had exactly one sip out of it. I have watched a couple of reviews on it online. A lot of the people that I follow, and just in case you guys aren't reading through my descriptions, I like the Bourbon Junkies, Dan and Sean. You guys, I'm sure they don't have any idea I exist, but I like their opinions. My palate tends to line up with theirs, although mine definitely lines up with Sean's a little bit better. Matt with ADH Whiskey, again, I'm sure he has no idea that I exist. My palate lines up fairly well with his on that one. And then formerly, Rex and Daniel with the Whiskey Tribe and stuff, like they're the ones that really got my brain going, that I was like, hey, I could do a whiskey YouTube thing. If you're not familiar, I've been doing this before COVID, so for a very long time, and you probably don't know that because I have almost no subscribers. But I do appreciate everyone who is subscribing and watching and interacting with the videos. But I also don't promote this at all. This is not a money-making venture for me. I've bought every bottle that I own. All 400 and something bottles have come out of my own pocket with my own money. I don't get any special deals. I don't get any discounts. Nobody gives me anything. So I'm just like you guys, and I'm trying to provide you with the information to help you spend your money a little bit better, and skip over like and that might be one of the videos I do. I've done a couple of them in the past, but it might be time to do another one. Like whiskeys I'm not going to buy anymore, whiskeys you could maybe skip, what currently are my favorite whiskeys, whiskeys for the price point, those kinds of videos. I think those are really helpful if you find that your nose and palate match up with mine. And so that's what I'm trying to do here. And so when I watched I don't know, I watched like 4 videos of people reviewing the batch 24B here, and the the spectrum of opinions on it couldn't be more varied and distinguished if possible. I mean, there were people who loved it. There were people who absolutely despised it. I think some of it matters on like, was this your first bottle of Stagg or was this your 20th bottle of Stagg? Um, there's everybody has a much different experience. Everybody has a different palate. And so the opinions were just all over the place. And so um, I just basically threw all that out because I don't think any of it applies to me in particular. And so hopefully you get a little bit of something out of this. And again, I didn't know what batch this was going into it. They just told me, hey, we got Stagg, and at 51.59, I was like, you know what? Doesn't matter what it is. Even if it's the worst Stagg release yet, it's still going to be roughly worth the $51 price tag. But when you're taking and buying it at 100 or 150 or 250 or $300, you better know what you're getting into. So if you do go down that rabbit hole of trying to hunt down something, make sure you watch as many videos as possible on that bottle first to kind of get the spectrum of opinions. And secondly, watch videos by those people, like people who give it something a good review. Watch, let's say, no less than 5 videos of their reviews on other bottles and make sure that, like, get the bottle out as they're reviewing it and try that one. And it doesn't have to be a high dollar bottle. It could be an everyday drink. It could be do a review of Wild Turkey 101. Do a review of Old Forester 1910, 1920. A review of any of the benchmark series. Anything simple and cheap like that, and drink along with that person while they're doing the review and see if their nose, their palate matches up with your experience before you just go all in on what it is that they have to say about a particular bottle and whether or not you're going to go in on. That's what it's been a while since I've said that, so there you go. Hopefully, if you're watching my content, that you've done that and you find that we align pretty well, so you can trust my judgment as to whether or not it's something you're going to want to get into. Okay, it's interesting. So it has a grape, like it almost reminds me of grape big league chew. I don't even know if that's a thing anymore. But if you're my age, I'm 40, so if you're between the ages of say 30 and 50, you'll probably know what that is. It's a pouch of bubble gum that's shredded, and it was made. The concept was back when tobacco was not so ostracized. We used to have the gum cigars and the candy cigarettes and the pouches of bubble gum, and the grape big league chew had a very distinct smell to it when you open that pouch. This has that with almost a chemical, I hate to say Sharpie, or marker or acetone. Acetone is not the right smell. It's not like nail polish remover or anything like that. It's just got a little bit of something chemical on the back end of like a grape, like a strong fake chemical grape flavor smell with more chemical on the back end of it. And I know that sounds like an absolute terrible descriptor. I will say, it's not the greatest nose out there. That's what hits me the hardest, and in the back, kind of retro nasal. But in with that, and as it sits here more, and as it warms up, and I move it around a bit, also with that, it smells viscous. It smells oily and rich. There is a lot of dark fruit in there, like raspberry. Raspberry, plum, raisin. Um, I know raspberry typically gets thrown into like the bright, sweet, fruity notes. But like picture like a dark raspberry jam with not a ton of sugar. Like it's not a sweet, it's not an overpowering sweetness. There's like a dark brown sugar molasses kind of thing going on. Um, but there's also a confectioner sugar in there. And when I say confectioner sugar, it's powdered sugar. Like if you've ever opened a bag of powdered sugar and a little bit wafts up into your face, I mean, it's like distinctly that smell. It's distinctly a Buffalo Trace nose profile where you get that apple floral note in there. Um, but yeah, it's getting darker. Darker, rich, and sweetness is in there. The proof is not killing the nose at all. And as I sit here and smell it more and more, that mercury chemical nose is dissipating, and I almost don't smell it at all right now. And it's pushing more and more into the sweeter, lighter. Like that time, I almost got a light, like caramel drizzle, honey kind of a nose in there. So the nose is shifting around quite a bit, just as it spends more time in the glass, gets moved around, gets warmed up, that kind of a thing, which is awesome. And again, this is only the second pour I've ever had out of this bottle. So the first pour I was extremely happy with, but as you know, I just got done talking about it. Boy, it showed up again now. It's almost like a sourness, like if you've ever had like rhubarb pie or rhubarb crisp of some sort, when you smell that, it has that sour essence to it. It almost is like that on the back end. And then once again, man, it's just being covered up now all of a sudden by sweet, dark, rich notes. So, all right, that's enough blabbering about the notes. Let's get into the flavor profile and see what we got going on here. Okay, proof kind of hits you. Definitely goes retro nasal, and it's kind of hard to avoid that with a high proof whiskey. Pretty much as soon as it hits your tongue, any movement of that whiskey gonna get those particles kind of to pop up, get you in the back of the nose, nasal cavity. I'm gonna have to take another sip because I've already kind of forgotten about the palate a little bit, but it was because the proof kind of hit me right away. It didn't overwhelm anything. It didn't want to make me cough or anything like that, but it definitely covered up the beginning of the palate, and it was very sweet. It started sweet, and man, right now, like the finish, it's just lingering and lingering and lingering, and it is sweet. It is sugary, graham cracker, vanilla, caramel, buttery. Oh, like a really nice melted butter, caramel. It's, oh my gosh, it's fantastic, absolutely fantastic on the finish. Kind of that mid palate, I was still struggling with some of that proof, trying to pull out a note, a tasting note in there, but you definitely picked up that Buffalo Trace mid palate, kind of a honeysuckle apple. There was a little bit of oak in there, but it was a lot of caramel sweet, brown sugar. It was really, really nice. Just that proof. And again, that might have just been the way that I drank it, that I kind of did a little bit of that Kentucky chew and I kind of pressed it up on purpose. Um, but when you do that, that ethanol is going to fill up that nasal cavity and kind of block out some of those notes. So you'll have that. The nose, hard shift. It went sweet, very, very sweet, very light, sweet. And by light, I don't mean light in the density. I mean light in it's now honey, vanilla, light brown sugar, confectioner sugar. It went really, really out of those dark notes into lighter, sweeter notes. Still has a little bit of that chemical on the back end, but highly dissipating. It's almost a little bit of grapiness in there. Going back in. Once again, ethanol's kicking in. Covers up a little bit of that sweetness. Get a little bit of tannic wood in there, just real light, real subtle, hardly noticeable at all. It's kind of mixing with that ethanol, so it's not that big of a deal. And then immediately pushing into those sweet notes in there. It's almost like the ethanol is bringing with it some of those harsher components early on in the palate, but it is pushing on further, faster, like those kind of hit, and then boom, now you're into that really nice, easy drinking, sweet caramel, brown sugar. Vanilla's hitting pretty hard. There's almost baking spice, would I say? It's almost venturing towards like a nutmeg. You know how nutmeg kind of hits, it hints at sweetness without the sugary sweet, if that makes any sense to anybody. It almost is doing one of those numbers with, I would say it's almost a nutmeg that's kind of hitting in there, maybe with a little bit of cinnamon, a sweet light cinnamon, but just nice sweet sugary notes in there. Same with the finish again, kind of going into a graham cracker, buttery, like melted butter. A lot of good sweetness going on in there. And now the nose is just pure sweet caramel goodness. Buttery caramel goodness, actually. Oh, I'm digging it. Now that time, proof didn't hit. Got a little bit of the grape on the very first couple beats of the palate. And when I say grape, it's not like fruit. It's artificial sweet grape candy kind of a grapeness, and it was just like there and gone. I mean, grape big league chew would be the name of the game for sure. But yeah, I'm digging it, and at the price I paid, if you can find it for that, awesome. I hope you do. Totally worth the money at that price. Depends on how much you like proof and how much you really want to chase it just to say you have it. I would pay maybe. I guess if I saw this for $100 and I had gotten a chance to taste it, so I knew what it was, I'd pay $100 for it. Having never had it, I feel like if you are like me, it was really more like, oh, I just want to have one, right? Like it's kind of a unicorn for me. I just want to have the experience of being able to buy one, have one on the shelf, try it, whatever else, the thrill of the hunt, as it were. And so from that standpoint, okay, $100. I would say if you drank this and you paid $100, it was your first one and whatever, you would probably not be disappointed with it as long as you like this isn't the first whiskey you've ever drank or something like that. Because the proof will definitely throw a lot of people for a loop if they are not accustomed to it. But I think this is one that if you drink it over time, let it sit for a little while, let that proof dissipate and stuff. Man, it's going to be an absolute hitter. It'll be a phenomenal whiskey. Yeah, it's totally worth that. But if you can find it under $100, I think you better grab one. I think it's worth it. Just like even right now, I don't know how long it's been since I've had that sip, but I like just like literally melted butter, creaminess, oily clinging to my tongue. That's what I taste. With little hints of sweetness in there, a little bit of that baking spice in there. It's great. It's absolutely great. I'm so glad and fortunate that I was able to find this. So go ahead, drop down in the comments down below. Have you been able to get your hands on a 24B or have you seen it at all? And as I said, it's mid-January 2025 here. So, these are probably going to be harder to find. But if you do, pick one up. It's worth it. If it's, a reasonable price. $150, I'm probably out, but I'm also out no matter what at $150 on Stagg. Like it would have to be this 23C or something that I knew was regarded as fantastic, above and beyond. But guess what? We're going to do a head-to-head on these two in one of the upcoming videos, so we'll find out. Maybe I'm wrong. We'll do it blind. We'll see which one I like the most, and For the love of God, let's hope that I get the 23C as being my favorite. But anyways, let me know. Let me know what you think of it, what you think of the Stagg thing in general. Is it worth chasing? Any of that kind of information, love to hear what you have to say. So go ahead, drop it in the comments down below. If you haven't already, please like, comment, subscribe. Check us out on YouTube, BitChute. Those are kind of the two main platforms that I'm doing stuff on. And stay tuned, because the next video coming up will be this Blanton straight from the barrel. So have yourselves a great day. We'll catch you in the next video.